The local shooting range was a place where confidence echoed louder than the gunshots themselves. Men and women gathered here regularly, boasting of past victories, fine-tuning their aim, and sharing stories of competitions won and lost. It was a place that felt familiar to many, but intimidating to others. For Sarah, it was both a challenge and an opportunity. Sarah walked into the range on a bright Saturday morning. Her steps steady but unassuming. She wore simple clothes, a comfortable shirt, and jeans. Nothing flashy to attract attention. Her brown hair was tied back in a neat ponytail, and her eyes held a calm determination. To the regular visitors, she seemed like just another newcomer. Someone who might fumble through a few practice rounds before giving up, but Sarah carried with her a quiet confidence that didn't come from boasting or loud declarations. The range was busy. Several shooters were lined up, their focused expressions showing years of practice. Among them was Jake, the reigning champion, known for his unbeatable record and sharp shooting skills. He was hard to miss, with his easy smile and the unmistakable air of someone used to winning. As Sarah stepped up to the counter to sign in, Jake glanced her way but quickly turned his attention back to the target. Unconcerned, Sarah chose a lane near the far end where the crowd was thinner. She didn't want to be the center of attention, not yet. She carefully unpacked her equipment, methodically checking each piece. Her hands moved with the grace of someone well acquainted with the routine. But she kept to herself, not speaking unless spoken to. A few people glanced at her curiously. Some whispered among themselves, wondering who this quiet woman was. But no one approached. At the range, reputation often spoke louder than any newcomer's silence. Sarah didn't mind. She preferred to let her actions do the talking. As she took her first stance, her breath steady, she reminded herself of the importance of patience. Many here fired quickly, eager to show off their skill. But Sarah knew the value of calm focus. She raised her pistol, aligned her sights, and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out sharply. The bullet hit close to the center of the target, drawing a few nods of approval from the onlookers. This was a promising start, but no one could have guessed that this was just the beginning. After a few more rounds, Sarah's shots consistently landed near the bullseye. Her posture was relaxed but precise, her movements deliberate. She wasn't flashy, but she was effective. The quiet intensity she displayed was different from the usual confident bravado that filled the range. Jake, meanwhile, finished his practice and noticed the slight change in the atmosphere. Few more heads turned toward Sarah's lane. Some regulars began to murmur. She wasn't just a novice. She was good, unexpectedly good. Despite the curiosity, Sarah remained focused, unbothered by the attention. She packed her gear with care when she was finished, then glanced briefly toward the champions board where Jake's record was proudly displayed. Her expression was unreadable. Before leaving, she signed up for the upcoming shooting contest, a low-key registration that barely raised an eyebrow. Most of the crowd were focused on Jake and the usual favorites. Sarah's name was almost lost in the list. As she walked away from the range, Sarah felt a quiet satisfaction. She knew this was only the beginning of her journey here. What mattered most was not the noise of the crowd, but the steady aim of her own resolve. For now, Sarah was just the quiet newcomer. But those who looked closely could sense something more, a calm strength beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to shine. Jake was a familiar figure at the shooting range. His reputation stretched well beyond the neighborhood. Years of practice, countless trophies, and an unbroken record had made him something of a local legend. His name was spoken with respect and a touch of awe by those who came to test their skills. Today, Jake was in his element. The sunlight caught the gleam of his polished pistol as he lined up his shots, his movements fluid and confident. He was preparing for the upcoming contest, the one event everyone talked about the day when shooters from around the area came to compete, hoping to challenge the champion. As Jake finished his practice session, he noticed the new woman who had arrived a few days earlier. Sarah, She was quiet and reserved, clearly not seeking attention. At first, he barely registered her presence. After all, he had seen many beginners come and go. Few lasted long in the competitive environment of the range. Still, there was something about her calm demeanor that made him glance again. She moved, with an ease that didn't match the tentative nature of a newcomer. But Jake shrugged it off. He was confident in his abilities, certain no one here could match his skill, especially not someone so unassuming. The crowd at the range had been buzzing about the upcoming contest for weeks. Jake was the favorite, and many were eager to see if anyone could finally break his record. The anticipation was electric. Conversations often circled back to his precision, his speed, and the mental strength that set him apart. Jake enjoyed this attention. He was used to it, and he liked the challenge. For him, shooting wasn't just a sport, it was a way of life. A discipline that required focus and dedication as he packed up his equipment that day. He overheard a few whispered comments about Sarah's recent practice sessions. Some people noticed her steady hand and quiet confidence. A few speculated whether she might enter the contest. Jake smiled to himself. Let her try. He felt no threat. His record had stood unbroken for years, and he planned to keep it that way. In the days that followed, Jake maintained his usual routine. He practiced diligently, perfecting every shot. He greeted fellow shooters with his trademark charm, effortlessly commanding respect. Meanwhile, Sarah continued her low-profile approach. She practiced silently, her concentration unshaken by the murmurs around her. She was aware of the growing curiosity, but did not seek to engage. To her, the contest was not about fame or recognition. It was about proving to herself what she could accomplish as the contest day drew closer. The range was filled with energy and anticipation. Jake was confident, surrounded by supporters who believed in his victory. Sarah, on the other hand, remained in the background, preparing quietly and steadily. On the evening before the event, Jake sat at the bar near the range, surrounded by friends and fans. He talked about the contest, sharing stories of past wins and his plans to maintain his unbeaten streak. When someone mentioned Sarah's name, Jake chuckled lightly. I've heard she's been practicing, but let's be honest, this is my game. The spotlight's mine. His words carried conviction, but there was a subtle edge of curiosity beneath his confidence. He wondered quietly if Sarah's skill was real or just a fluke, but he would wait to see her performance before giving her any real attention. That night, as Jake reviewed his shooting techniques and mental preparation, Sarah was at home, calmly, visualizing each shot she would take. Her focus was unwavering. She knew that tomorrow could change everything, not just for her, but for everyone at the range. Jake believed he was ready to defend his title. Sarah was ready to make her mark. While the neighborhood buzzed with excitement for the upcoming contest, Sarah kept her preparations private. She didn't seek attention or praise. Instead, she carved out quiet moments each day to practice, focusing on perfecting every aspect of her shooting technique. Her modest home had a small, dedicated space where she trained. Few targets hung neatly on the wall, and her equipment was carefully arranged, reflecting the discipline she maintained. Unlike the lively chatter of the range, this was her sanctuary, a place where concentration replaced conversation. Sarah's hands moved with the precision of someone who understood the subtle balance between strength and control. Her breathing was steady, each inhale and exhale measured to steady her aim. To an outsider, it might have seemed like simple practice, but to Sarah, it was a form of meditation, a way to clear her mind and find focus. She traced the contours of her pistol, familiar and comforting. Though she hadn't spoken much about her past, there was no doubt that she had experience. The fluidity in her stance and the calm in her eyes told a story of many hours spent honing her skill. Her approach was different from most shooters she'd observed at the range. Many relied on speed or flashy moves to impress. Sarah believed in patience and consistency. She practiced slow, deliberate shots, analyzing each result and making small adjustments. Sometimes she recorded her progress, noting the distance, angle, and environmental conditions. She studied how the light shifted in the room and how even the slightest change in grip affected her aim. Her determination wasn't about beating others. It was about mastering herself. This personal journey fueled her quiet resolve to enter the contest. Not to prove anything to the crowd, but to honor the commitment she had made to herself. Though she was focused on her training, Sarah wasn't completely isolated. Occasionally, she visited the range to observe others. She watched Jake and the other competitors from a distance, learning from their strengths and mistakes. She noticed how some relied too much on confidence without grounding it in steady technique. One afternoon, as she practiced at the range, an older woman approached her. Mrs. Thompson was a regular who had seen many shooters come and go. She smiled warmly and said, "You have a calm that's rare around here. It's a strength not many realize." Sarah thanked her quietly, feeling a flicker of connection. It was a reminder that while she often kept to herself, the path she walked wasn't solitary. As the contest drew near, Sarah's confidence grew not from external approval but from the knowledge that she had done the work. Each practice session strengthened her aim and deepened her focus. Meanwhile, rumors about Sarah's skill began to spread. Some whispered that she was more than just a beginner. A few speculated about her background, wondering if she had once competed elsewhere. But Sarah never confirmed or denied. She preferred to let her shots speak for themselves. At home, Sarah prepared for the contest with quiet rituals. She checked her equipment meticulously, making sure every piece was in perfect condition. She reviewed her breathing exercises and visualization techniques, steadying her nerves. Despite the calm exterior, there was a flutter of anticipation. The contest would be a test not just of skill, but of character. Sarah reminded herself that, no matter the outcome, this moment was a milestone in her personal journey. It was a chance to step forward with integrity and grace, as the sun set on the day before the contest. Sarah looked out her window at the peaceful neighborhood. The world outside was full of noise and expectation, but inside she held on to a stillness that gave her strength. Tomorrow, the shooting range would be filled with eyes and whispers. But for Sarah, the real challenge was quiet and clear. To trust in her training and take her shot. The morning sun rose gently over the shooting range, casting long shadows across the well-worn lanes. The air was thick with anticipation, a quiet buzz of excitement that seemed to hum through the crowd gathered for the contest. Shooters arrived early, checking their gear and exchanging friendly greetings, each quietly preparing for the competition. Ahead, Sarah arrived just before the event began, carrying her equipment with the same quiet confidence she had shown since her first day at the range. Her presence was understated. She didn't seek attention or make a show of herself. Many of the regulars barely noticed her as she signed in, her name slipping quietly onto the registration sheet. Jake was already there, surrounded by supporters and friends. He laughed easily, sharing stories of past contests and predictions about his next victory. The crowd expected nothing less than a flawless performance from the reigning champion, as the contest coordinator called everyone to gather. Sarah found a quiet spot to stretch and focus. Her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the nervous energy that fluttered through some of the other competitors. She closed her eyes briefly, visualizing her shots, steadying her breath. The contest began with a series of warm-up rounds, giving shooters a chance to get comfortable in front of the audience. Jake performed flawlessly, his shots landing precisely where they should. The crowd cheered with each successful hit, reinforcing his reputation as the unbeatable champion. Sarah's warm-up was equally steady, though quieter in impact. Her shots were solid, each one a testament to the hours of practice and discipline she had invested. Few spectators glanced her way, curious but reserved. unsure how to react to this modest competitor who showed no sign of nerves. When it was time for the official rounds, the tension in the air deepened. The contest was structured to test both accuracy and consistency, pushing shooters to maintain their focus under pressure. One by one, participants took their turns, some faltering, others rising to the challenge. Jake was up early, confident, and composed. His shots continued to impress, each one a reminder of why he held the champion's title. The audience cheered, fully behind their favorite. Then it was Sarah's turn. She stepped forward with quiet grace, acknowledging the crowd with a small nod. The range fell silent. All eyes turned toward her, a mix of curiosity and disbelief spreading. Through the spectators, Sarah lifted her pistol, her fingers steady as she took aim. Time seemed to slow as she breathed deeply, aligning her sights with the target. The world narrowed to a single moment. She squeezed the trigger. The sharp crack echoed through the range. The bullet struck the bullseye, dead center perfect. A hush fell over the crowd. For a heartbeat, no one moved or spoke. Then whispers began to ripple through the audience. Growing into murmurs of surprise and excitement, the contest officials quickly checked the scoreboard. Sarah's shot wasn't just accurate, it had broken. It's the existing record held by Jake. The new score flashed boldly for all to see. Jake's confident smile faltered for a moment. He looked towards Sarah, a mixture of surprise and respect in his eyes. The crowd erupted into applause, many rising to their feet in stunned admiration. Sarah lowered her pistol, her expression calm but proud. She didn't boast or celebrate loudly. Instead, she simply nodded and stepped back, allowing the moment to settle. The atmosphere had shifted. The quiet newcomer was no longer invisible. She was the competitor to watch as the contest continued. Sarah maintained her composure. Each shot reinforced her skill and determination. The initial surprise faded into genuine respect from the crowd and fellow shooters. Alike, Jake approached Sarah after the round, extending a hand with a sincere smile. "That was an incredible shot," he said quietly. "You've earned every bit of it." Sarah accepted the handshake with a smile. "Thank you. I've worked hard for this." The day ended with a new champion crowned. But more importantly, the story that would be remembered for years. A story about a simple woman whose first shot at the contest broke the champion's record and reshaped the spirit of the shooting range. The crowd was still buzzing from the shock of Sarah's first shot, which had shattered the long-standing record. The energy at the shooting range had shifted in an instant. Curiosity and admiration replaced casual chatter and confident assumptions. No one had expected the quiet newcomer to make such an impression so early in the contest. Sarah stood calmly at her lane, taking her place for the next round. Her eyes were steady, her breath controlled. Despite the growing attention, she remained focused on the task before her rather than the surprised faces around her. The next shots came quickly, one after another. Each time, the bullet found its mark near the center of the target. Her precision was consistent, almost effortless. The audience, now fully engaged, began to appreciate the skill beneath Sarah's unassuming exterior. Jake watched from across the range, his initial shock giving way to thoughtful respect. He had never encountered a competitor like Sarah before, one who combined quiet humility with unwavering confidence and skill. Though his competitive spirit pushed him to hold on to his title, he admired the dedication she displayed. Whispers spread through the crowd. Some attendees speculated about Sarah's background. Had she trained professionally elsewhere? Or was she hiding a remarkable past? But Sarah remained an enigma, saying little beyond polite smiles and gracious nods. As the rounds progressed, the atmosphere grew more intense. The contest wasn't just a test of accuracy. It was a mental game, challenging each shooter to stay calm under pressure. Sarah's ability to maintain her composure amazed many. She treated each shot as a new opportunity, free from the weight of expectations. One moment stood out clearly during a particularly challenging round. A sudden gust of wind stirred the leaves around the range. The crowd held its breath as Sarah raised her pistol. In that brief pause, her calmness seemed almost tangible, a quiet strength radiating from her. Her shot broke the silence again, hitting the bullseye with flawless precision. The applause that followed was warm and genuine. It wasn't just for the shot, but for the grace and poise Sarah demonstrated under pressure. Jake approached Sarah during a brief break in the contest. "You're really something," he said, his tone sincere. "I've been shooting for years, and I've never seen anyone so steady in the face of all this." Sarah smiled softly. "Thank you. I've learned that staying calm is as important as skill." The contest continued with Sarah's performance setting a new standard. Other shooters, inspired by her example, found themselves pushing harder, aiming with renewed focus. The friendly rivalry added a new dimension to the event. When the final round arrived, the excitement was palpable. Sarah's earlier record-breaking shot had raised the stakes, but she didn't let the pressure overwhelm her. She stayed centered, ready for the last test. The final shot was her moment to prove that her skill wasn't a fluke. With steady hands and a clear mind, she took aim and fired. The bullet struck perfectly, sealing her place as the new champion. As the contest concluded, the crowd rose in applause, recognizing not only her talent, but the quiet determination that had carried her through. Sarah had transformed from an overlooked newcomer to a respected champion in a single day. Jake stepped forward to congratulate her again, this time with the full recognition of a worthy rival. "You earned this," he said. "I'm looking forward to seeing what you do next." Sarah nodded, feeling a mixture of gratitude and quiet pride. The journey ahead was still unwritten, but she knew she was ready. The shooting range had changed that day not just because of a broken record, but because of the spirit and dedication Sarah brought to the sport. Her unexpected shot became a symbol of possibility, inspiring others to believe that quiet strength and steady focus could achieve remarkable things. After the contest, the atmosphere at the shooting range remained electric. Sarah's record-breaking performance was still the main topic of conversation, and people were eager to learn more about the quiet woman who had captured everyone's attention in such a surprising way. In the days following the event, Sarah found herself the subject of gentle curiosity. Fellow shooters and regular visitors approached her, not with doubt or suspicion, but with genuine interest and respect. They wanted to hear her story, to understand what had brought her to the range and how she had developed such remarkable skill. Sarah welcomed these conversations with modesty. She didn't claim to be a prodigy or a natural talent. Instead, she spoke about discipline, patience, and the importance of consistent practice. She emphasized that her journey had been one of steady progress, rather than sudden breakthroughs. One afternoon, as she cleaned her pistol at the range, an older man named Mr. Davis approached her. He was known for his deep knowledge of the sport and for mentoring younger shooters. "Your shot was incredible," he said kindly. "Been involved in this sport for decades, and I've rarely seen such calm under pressure." "What's your secret?" Sarah smiled gently. "I focus on staying present," she replied. "Each shot is just one moment. If I let my mind wander to what's next, or what others expect, I lose that moment. It's about trusting the preparation." Mr. Davis nodded thoughtfully. "That's wisdom. The mental game is often the hardest part." Another curious shooter, a young woman named Emily, asked Sarah if she had competed elsewhere before. Sarah paused for a moment but chose to keep her story simple. "I've had some experience, yes, but this range is where I'm learning the most right now." This honesty endeared her even more to those around her. People admired her humility and the way she handled attention without letting it change who she was. Despite the positive reception, there were still questions lingering in the air. Some wondered if Sarah had a hidden past, perhaps professional training or a history of competition that she hadn't revealed. But Sarah seemed comfortable with leaving some mystery intact, preferring to let her future performances speak louder than any backstory. Jake, the former champion, also took time to speak with Sarah. Their conversations were marked by mutual respect rather than rivalry. Jake admitted he had underestimated her initially, but he was quick to acknowledge her talent and dedication. "Your calmness threw me off," Jake said one afternoon. "Not something you see every day at the range?" Sarah smiled in response. "It's just part of how I approach it. I'm glad to see you take it in stride." The range itself felt different now. Sarah's presence had shifted the energy, inspiring others to approach shooting with a new mindset, less about showmanship. It's more about focus and patience. Local newspapers even picked up the story, sharing headlines about the unexpected champion who had broken the record in her very first contest. Sarah remained grounded amid the attention, grateful for the support but intent on continuing her journey quietly as the days turned into weeks. Sarah's routine settled into a comfortable rhythm. She balanced practice, work, and the occasional visit from friends who were curious to see the woman who had become something of a local legend. Though questions and whispers followed her, Sarah carried on with a steady heart and clear purpose. She understood that true strength wasn't found in answers or explanations, but in the steady pursuit of one's goals. And so, while the neighborhood continued to speculate and admire, Sarah prepared for the challenges ahead, ready to prove that her first shot was just the beginning of a much larger story. In the weeks following the contest, Sarah found herself navigating a new world, one where her talent had drawn attention not just from the shooting range, but from the wider neighborhood. Invitations to local events, requests for interviews, and even casual conversations with people she barely knew became part of her daily life. Despite the growing spotlight, Sarah remained grounded. She understood that the recognition was a result of her hard work and dedication, not luck or chance. This realization gave her strength, allowing her to embrace the moment without losing sight of who she was. At the range, the atmosphere had shifted noticeably. More people showed up, eager to see the champion who had quietly risen from the ranks. Beginners sought her advice, and seasoned shooters approached her with genuine respect. Sarah welcomed these interactions with warmth, always ready to share what she had learned. One afternoon, a group of young shooters gathered around her, eyes bright with curiosity. They asked about her techniques, her mindset, and what it felt like to break the record. Sarah listened patiently and then shared her philosophy. "It's not about being perfect," she explained. "It's about showing up every day, focusing on each shot and not letting fear or doubt take over. If you can do that, you're already ahead." Her words resonated deeply with the listeners. Many realized that the path to success wasn't paved with talent alone, but with perseverance and calm determination. Outside the range, Sarah's life was just as balanced. She continued her day job, cherishing the normalcy it brought. Friends and family celebrated her achievements, proud but supportive, encouraging her to stay true to herself. At the same time, Sarah recognized that her newfound role came with responsibility. She began considering how she could use her platform to encourage others, especially women, to try shooting sports without fear or hesitation. She started organizing small workshops at the range, inviting people who had never handled a pistol before. These sessions were casual and welcoming, designed to break down barriers and make the sport accessible. Jake, the former champion, was among the first to attend. He admired Sarah's vision and the way she nurtured new shooters. Their friendly rivalry had evolved into a partnership of mutual respect and shared passion. As Sarah guided the new shooters through the basics, she saw the same nervous excitement she had felt in her early days. She knew that encouragement and support could make all the difference. Meanwhile, local media continued to cover her story, highlighting her as a role model. But Sarah never let the attention distract her. She kept her training rigorous always, looking for ways to improve. One day, as she practiced alone, she reflected on how far she had come. From the quiet woman who arrived unnoticed at the range to the record-breaking champion and mentor. Her journey had been unexpected, but deeply rewarding. She understood that the real victory wasn't the record itself, but the opportunity to inspire others and grow through every challenge. As the shooting range prepared for its next big event, Sarah felt ready to face whatever came next. The journey was far from over, and she welcomed it with open arms and a steady hand in embracing the spotlight. Sarah found not only recognition, but also a deeper connection to the sport and the people around her. Her story was no longer just about a single shot. It was about the power of focus, humility, and the courage to step forward. Months had passed since Sarah's record-breaking day at the shooting range. The once quiet woman had become a respected figure in the local shooting community. But more importantly, she had grown into a symbol of dedication and quiet strength. The next big event at the range was approaching, a regional tournament that drew shooters from surrounding towns. Sarah had been invited to compete, a recognition of her skill and rising reputation. Yet, despite the honor, she approached the challenge with the same calm focus that had carried her through before. On the morning of the tournament, Sarah arrived early, her gear packed carefully as always. The familiar scent of gunpowder and polished wood greeted her, and the soft murmur of warm-ups filled the air. This time, the crowd was larger, the stakes higher. Many had heard of Sarah's story, and anticipation buzzed through the spectators. She smiled softly to herself, appreciating the journey that had brought her here, but refusing to let the excitement shake her composure as the competition began. Sarah moved through each round with steady confidence. Her shots were precise, her focus unwavering. Other skilled shooters challenged her, but she met each with grace and determination. The tournament was more than just a contest. It was a test of endurance and mental strength. Sarah's earlier experiences, her quiet training sessions, her journey through whispers and questions had prepared her well between rounds. Sarah noticed the faces of new shooters watching her intently. She caught their hopeful eyes and remembered her own first days at the range. When the path seemed uncertain, after the final shot was fired, the scores were tallied. Sarah's name stood at the top once again. The crowd erupted in applause, but Sarah remained humble. She nodded respectfully to the other competitors and to the audience, grateful for the opportunity to compete and grow. Later, as she gathered her things, Sarah was approached by a young woman, eyes shining with admiration. "You've inspired me to try shooting," she said softly. "Thank you for showing me it's possible." Sarah smiled warmly. "Keep practicing. Focus on each shot and don't be afraid to start small. Everyone's journey is different." That moment captured the essence of Sarah's new role, not just as a champion, but as a mentor. An inspiration. As the sun set over the range, Sarah took a moment to reflect. Her journey had started with a simple shot that no one expected, but it had blossomed into something far greater. It was about perseverance, humility, and the quiet courage to step into the unknown. She thought about the friends she had made, the challenges she had overcome, and the community that had embraced her. The shooting range was no longer just a place to practice. It was a space where dreams took shape and where people encouraged each other to be their best. Sarah knew the road ahead would bring new challenges, new goals, and new stories. But she felt ready for whatever came next. Her first shot had broken a record, but it had also broken down barriers, showing that strength could come in unexpected forms, and that greatness often starts quietly. With her pistol by her side and a steady heart, Sarah stepped forward into her new beginning, ready to write the next chapter of her remarkable journey.